I never thought walking into a courtroom would end up being the moment my own daughter tried to bury me alive. Not literally, but close enough. That Tuesday morning in Fulton County Probate Court, the air was too still, too clean, like it knew something was about to split wide open. Heads turned when I entered, not out of respect, out of curiosity, pity, judgment. I heard it all in the silence. Kendra, my only daughter, my pride once upon a time, sat at the petitioner's table, legs crossed, her expression a cocktail of boredom and entitlement. She didn't even pretend to stand, just rolled her eyes like I was late to my own funeral. Her lawyer, some slick man in a tailored Navy suit, leaned toward her and whispered something under his breath. What they didn't know, or maybe forgot, was that even a whisper carries in a courtroom, especially when you've been an auditor for 30 years. "Let her play noble. She'll break down by lunch," he said. I kept walking, spine tall, every step echoing on the polished floor, ice in my veins. My shoes, black patent leather, clicked like punctuation. Judge Carlton looked up from his notes. Just a flick of the eyes, just enough to nod. But I caught it. 10 years ago, I sat in that same courthouse, testifying in a banking fraud case that sent a CFO to prison. Back then, they printed my picture in the AJC with the headline, "Senior Controller Exposes $4.3 million Embezzlement at Urban Core Bank." Same court, same seat. The clerk called my name. "Ms. Cynthia May Brooks?" I walked to the stand, swore my oath with a steady hand. "Cynthia May Brooks, born July 2nd, 1958. My voice didn't waver. From the corner of my eye, I saw Kendra go still. Not concerned, just annoyed, like this was taking longer than she planned. Like I was an obstacle, not her mother. She wanted guardianship, control over my finances, power of attorney. Form GPCSF 28, filed, timestamped, served. She claimed I was forgetting things, confused, unfit. What she forgot was who raised her, who balanced her checkbook until she was 26, who still had every receipt, every transfer, every message. I came with evidence. Let the record show. I was not here to surrender. I was here to remind them who I am. The bailiff's voice barely faded before I sat down and folded my hands in my lap. My rings clicked together softly, small, simple gold bands, each with a history. One from my mother, one I bought myself the year I paid off the mortgage, and the last, a gift from the women in my book club after I retired. My name still echoed in the room. Cynthia May Brooks. Kendra didn't flinch, but she didn't meet my eyes either. She stared ahead, blank and calculating, like she was watching a spreadsheet slowly balance in her favor. The lawyer next to her arranged his notes. I recognized the pattern, chronology first, then character assassination. I sat taller. I retired in 2022 after 31 years in accounting and internal audit. Senior Controller, Urban Core Bank. A ripple of recognition stirred in the gallery. Not from the strangers, from those who read the papers when Atlanta still had 2 morning editions. I testified in this courtroom in 2015 and again in 2018. I said calmly, "Fraud investigations." One involved a forged power of attorney. Judge Carlton's brow lifted, just slightly. "Ms. Brooks, can you confirm your current mental and physical condition?" The lawyer asked, his tone dipped in politeness like it might sweeten the cut. "I can." I adjusted my reading glasses. "My blood pressure is controlled. I passed a full physical last spring. Cognition normal, no medication for memory or mood. I balance my checkbook by hand. Still drive, still vote, still file my taxes early." Someone in the back, maybe one of the interns, coughed like they were suppressing a laugh. "My retirement accounts," I continued, turning toward the judge, "remain intact. $320,000. No withdrawals, no suspicious activity. I have statements if the court requires them." Kendra's jaw twitched. The clerk to my right, Ms. Rivera, flashed a subtle thumbs up under her folder. She used to watch me come in and out of these courtrooms with receipts and testimonies that got the job done. Today, I wasn't bringing down a banker. Today, I was defending myself. "She's been preparing," Kendra's lawyer muttered. "She's always prepared," Rivera whispered, not realizing her mic was still hot. I let that land. Let the weight of their underestimation fill the air. What they didn't understand, what they never saw past the age and the quiet, was that I wasn't fragile, I was focused. The lawyer cleared his throat, then said with rehearsed sympathy, "Ms. Brooks, would you describe a typical day in your life?" I could feel Kendra's restlessness from across the room. Her foot bounced under the table. She hated this part, the part where I didn't sound like a burden. She expected someone diminished. Instead, I gave them the truth. Most mornings I wake at 6:30. I brew my own coffee, dark roast, French press. I tend to my garden, pull weeds, water the roses along the back fence. I've been keeping a small herb bed since 2010. Tomatoes last summer were slow, but the basil came in full. No one interrupted. I attend Zion Hill's Tuesday book circle. We just finished The Warmth of Other Suns. I bring lemon pound cake, bake it myself, from scratch. Every Thursday, I clip coupons and organize my grocery list. And every Sunday, I make a phone call to my sister Ellen, who lives in Tallahassee, and we go over the Atlanta Journal-Constitution crossword together. The attorney shifted. Kendra fidgeted. I reached into my folder and withdrew 3 color photos, sliding them across to the bailiff. He passed them to the clerk. One of those shows my medicine cabinet, labeled by dosage and time of day. Another shows my planner, color-coded. And the third? My Kroger receipts for July, dated, itemized, and filed in my expense ledger. I saw the judge lean slightly forward. Not a word, just an awareness. My routine may not sound exciting, I continued, smoothing my skirt, but it's mine. It's consistent, independent, and fully under my control. Kendra finally looked at me then. Not lovingly, not even angrily, just the way someone might glance at a locked safe they once thought was easy to crack. My monthly ledger lay folded in my lap, handwritten in blue ink. Rent, utilities, food, tithe, garden, pharmacy. Totaled to the cent. It had been the same method I used for years at Urban Core, long before Kendra thought of me as inconvenient. The gallery was quiet. No murmurs, no side conversations. Just the soft clink of the clerk placing the photos into the record. "And you feel capable of continuing this routine?" the lawyer asked, trying to regain footing. "I'm not just capable," I replied. "I am living it." That was my life. Simple, steady, untouched, until she moved in. 3 feet from me, Kendra crossed her legs like she was settling in for a lecture she'd already heard. But the truth was, she hadn't heard this version, not the one I kept to myself. "It started last July," I said, my eyes on Judge Carlton, but my voice aimed just over my shoulder, where Kendra sat. She came to me after her divorce. Tears, boxes, baby clothes packed too tightly. Said she needed a soft place to land. I gave her mine. My voice held steady, but I felt the pull behind my ribs. She moved into the back bedroom, said it'd be for 3 months. I didn't ask for rent. Didn't write a lease. I just opened the door, like mothers do. No reaction from her. She glanced sideways at her lawyer, pretending to absorb strategy, but I saw her foot tap faster. At first, it was quiet. She made coffee, took long showers, left hair in the drain, but I said nothing. By August, the mail started arriving with her name. Packages, too. New shoes, throw pillows. A rug she said she'd ordered before the split. The judge tapped his pen twice. A signal, not to me, but to the record. I never asked for help with bills, but I kept notes. Georgia Power went from $96 to $212 that first month. Water climbed. Groceries doubled. She preferred almond milk and name-brand cereal. I reached down, lifted a paper from my file, and handed it to the clerk. Breakdown of household expenses, July through December. Total increase since her arrival, $260.74 per month. Ms. Rivera made a soft sound of surprise as she read the figures. She was polite, said thank you and I appreciate it, but never once offered a dime. Told neighbors she was helping me stay independent. Told her friends she was giving me company. I paused, careful not to let the weight in my throat rise. She had a way of making me feel like a charity project, like she was saving me from solitude while using the very quiet she claimed to relieve. A murmur in the gallery. I remember Miss Gertie, my neighbor, saying, "That girl's plotting something. I don't like how she looks at your house." I brushed it off. I turned to the judge. I didn't want to believe it then. Kendra didn't blink, but her mouth hardened into a line. "But I see clearly now." "Would you say you provided financial support to your daughter during that period?" the lawyer asked, his tone practiced. I didn't hesitate. Yes, substantial support. And I can account for every dollar. That was always my advantage. I kept receipts. My memory might be questioned, but my ledgers spoke with permanent ink. I began tracking it more deliberately after a conversation with my accountant, I said, unfolding a printed spreadsheet. It's all here. Every item, date, vendor, and reason. The document passed from bailiff to clerk, then to Judge Carlton. She came with nothing but a suitcase and a child half the time. I bought a new crib for the guest room. Target, $179.99, July 15th. Her car broke down in August. I paid $862.34 for a new radiator and front-end alignment. She said she'd reimburse me. I let that hang. She didn't. A few heads turned in the gallery. In September, her son needed uniforms for school. I paid $213.42. In October, it was groceries. Every week, every trip. From chicken thighs to almond milk, I covered it. Her child had allergies, so I switched brands. Cost me more, but I didn't complain. The judge turned a page in the packet. Gas money, co-pays, a birthday party she couldn't afford, so I footed the bill. $387.50, decorations and all. I cooked, cleaned, paid for a clown. November, her brakes needed replacing. Another $480. Christmas gifts? I used my pension check. I steadied my voice because I didn't want pity. Just clarity. By July of this year, I had spent $12,780 on her, documented. Kendra's jaw clenched. Her lawyer leaned in, whispering urgently now. I kept going. She never asked me not to. That's the part that stings. She expected it. Entitlement dressed up as gratitude. Whenever I hinted at cutting back, she'd say things like, "But we're family," or, "Don't worry, I'll help when I can." I exhaled slowly. I never saw a cent returned. The gallery was utterly still. Not even the clerk shuffled paper. I emailed my CPA, Latrice Holder, on July 28th. I added, voice clear. I asked her, at what point does help become harm to both of us? She replied, when there's no boundary. I turned toward Kendra then, and this time she met my eyes. She was right. It was a Thursday afternoon, hot and thick with summer air, the kind that clings to your skin and makes you slow. I had just come back from Kroger, a bag of fresh peaches in one hand, mail in the other, when I heard her voice through the hallway. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. She was pacing outside the guest room, phone tucked tight to her ear, tone low and quick. I stopped halfway down the hall, behind the wall, just close enough to hear. The house will be ours by fall. Trust me, she's almost there. She laughed. Not loud, not cruel, just confident, like a deal had already been made. My stomach dropped. I stepped back quietly, shoes silent on the carpet, and stood in the kitchen with my hand on the counter. The peaches rolled gently against the wood. I stared at them, suddenly unsure of where I stood in my own home. When she came in moments later, her face was bright, casual. "Ooh, you got peaches! Want me to make a cobbler this weekend?" I nodded slowly, pretending nothing had shifted. But something had. I couldn't shake the echo of her words. The house will be ours. Not maybe, not someday. Ours. As if my name had already been erased from the deed. Later that night, after she went out with friends and the house fell quiet, I sat on the edge of my bed with my old iPhone and opened the voice memo app. I whispered into the speaker, August 3rd, guest room hallway. She said the house would be hers by fall. I didn't know if I'd ever use it, but I'd learned, long ago, that paper fades. Voices don't. I didn't tell anyone. Not yet. No pastor, no neighbor, not even Ellen. I needed time to figure out what I was hearing. Was it a joke? A slip? Or was it something darker? 3 nights later, I used her laptop to check the weather before watering the yard. When I typed W into the browser bar, the first autofill was Zillow. Her saved listing was my house. Same cream siding, same camellia bushes, same porch I had painted myself 2 summers ago. She'd bookmarked it with a note. Comparable, price range 400 to 450K. I sat back in her desk chair and stared at the screen. It wasn't a joke. By the next week, the tension in the house had changed texture. It wasn't spoken outright, but it was there, thick and humming, like a power line just before it snaps. She had become overly helpful, hovering with polite suggestions disguised as concern. It started with a stack of glossy brochures on the kitchen counter. I noticed them while drying my hands after washing dishes. 4 neatly arranged pamphlets with cheerful seniors on the covers, arms linked, laughing in manicured courtyards. Titles like Serenity Meadows, Harborview Living, and Golden Horizons stared back at me with a sterile smile. Kendra breezed in like it was nothing. "Oh good, you saw those? I was doing some browsing online and thought you might want to consider some options. You know, just for the future." She said it so sweetly, as if I should be grateful. As if she'd brought me flowers, not eviction plans wrapped in pastel fonts. "For the future?" I asked, careful to keep my tone flat. "Well, yeah. I mean, you've done so much for everyone else. It's time you live somewhere safe and supported, where you don't have to do everything alone." Her eyes flicked, not at me, but toward the drawer near the pantry. That drawer held my deeds, my will, my durable power of attorney, still listing her name. I closed it with a single movement. That night, I went through the brochures. One was circled in black ink. Fulton Memory Care, Secure Residential Community. $4,250 a month, it claimed. All-inclusive. She had written next to it in her looping print, "Wouldn't this be lovely for her?" Lovely, she hadn't said anything outright, not yet, but the message was clear. She was making plans for my life, my space, my disappearance. At book club that Saturday, Gloria leaned in over her tea and said, "Cynthia, you good? You seem distant." I shook my head, smiled. "Just tired. Been a busy week." She studied me for a moment too long. "You know," she said carefully, "people show their intentions through patterns, not apologies." It stayed with me. That evening, I moved my personal papers out of the pantry drawer and into the small lockbox in my closet, changed the lock code, moved my passport into my purse. The first clue was subtle. A missed call from Dr. Nolan's office with no voicemail. Odd, since I never missed appointments, especially not checkups I had confirmed just 3 days prior. I tried calling back, but it was after hours, so I waited. The next morning, I found a new envelope tucked under my usual stack of mail. It bore the same clinic logo, but inside was not the expected appointment reminder. It was a confirmation for a, quote, cognitive screening evaluation scheduled in place of my original visit. I stared at the paper, rereading it twice. Then I pulled out my phone and checked the voicemail transcripts. My last message from the clinic, dated 2 days ago, read, "Appointment for physical checkup canceled per family request. Rescheduled per instructions. Family request." I hadn't authorized anything, hadn't spoken to anyone at the clinic in nearly a week, and I most certainly hadn't asked for a mental evaluation. I called the office immediately. Nurse Rita answered, her voice warm but puzzled. "Ms. Brooks? We were surprised, honestly. You've always handled your own appointments. But your daughter said..." "She's not authorized to make changes to my medical care," I interrupted. A pause. "I see," Reba said carefully. "Would you like me to flag your account for sole patient control and remove third-party access?" "Yes, immediately." As soon as I hung up, I sat in the dining room, staring at the flyer, still clutched in my hand. "Is it time to talk about memory changes?" it read, with a smiling nurse leaning over a confused-looking elder. No, it was not. When Kendra walked in later that evening, fresh from a run, earbuds in, face flushed, I waited. I didn't mention the flyer, didn't bring up the canceled checkup. I let her talk about the traffic, the weather, the new yoga class she wanted to try. Then I asked, "Did you cancel my doctor's appointment?" She looked up, only mildly surprised. "You forgot about it anyway, didn't you?" I figured a screening would be more useful. "Useful for what?" She smiled. Thin, tight. "Just peace of mind." Peace of mind for whom? I didn't say it aloud. I didn't have to. That night, I updated the lockbox, moved the deed, pulled copies of every medical and financial document into a folder labeled contingency. I waited 3 more days before saying anything. I needed to cool the temperature, gather myself. Anger, I had learned, was easy to dismiss, especially in a black woman of a certain age. They'd call it hysteria, paranoia, decline. But a calm voice, a level gaze, that cut deeper. It was after dinner, a mild August evening, the ceiling fan humming above the dining table. We'd eaten in silence. Lemon chicken, roasted okra, cornbread, all of it cooked by me. She scrolled through her phone between bites, barely pretending to be present. "Kendra?" I said, folding my napkin. "We need to talk." She didn't look up. "About what?" "About the doctor's appointment you canceled. The brochures. The memory test you scheduled without asking me." A beat, then another. Finally, she laughed. Short, dismissive. "Oh God, Mom, is that what this is about? I thought you'd be relieved. You've been so anxious lately." I held her gaze. "I wasn't anxious. I was observant." She pushed her chair back slowly, as if I'd inconvenienced her. "You're reading too much into everything. It's all in your head. Honestly, you sound kind of paranoid." I felt the word hit me like a slap. Paranoid. "I'm trying to protect you," she continued, standing now, pacing. "You've been misplacing things, forgetting dates. You canceled your bridge night and didn't even remember until Gloria texted. One canceled game doesn't make me incompetent." "No, but your reaction right now? It's a little extreme." There it was, the full slide into gaslight. I sat back, folding my arms. "Is that what you're going to tell people? That I'm erratic? That I'm declining?" Kendra sighed, exasperated. "No one's trying to take anything from you, Mom. Just relax. Don't embarrass yourself." That last part caught in my chest like glass. "Don't embarrass yourself." I stood, slowly, walked to the entryway where a pile of new mail waited. I flipped through it until I found the envelope with her name, addressed to my home. Utility bill. "She moved her address here last week," I said aloud, more to myself than to her. "She's establishing residency." She said nothing. I stared at her, then down at the page. My journal sat nearby, open, tear-stained, last night's words still wet at the corners. She's making a move, and I am utterly alone in this house. That night, for the first time in months, I locked my bedroom door. I sat on the back porch the morning after, tea in hand, steam rising into the late August haze. The jasmine had browned at the tips, and the crepe myrtle needed trimming. Small things I'd normally take pride in fixing, but I couldn't shake the weight on my chest. There was a sourness in the air, a sense that the ground beneath my home was no longer mine alone. I opened my notebook and flipped to a fresh page. At the top, I wrote in all caps, "Line drawn." Then I picked up my phone and scrolled through old contacts until I found the one name I hadn't touched in years, but never deleted. Clarissa Payne. We'd worked together at Urban Corps in the late 2000s. She'd gone federal. Office of Inspector General. Serious, sharp. The type who didn't play games or offer platitudes. I texted, "Clarissa, this is Cynthia Brooks. I need to talk. It's about my daughter. She's trying to take my house." The reply came in under 4 minutes. "I'm listening. What do you have?" That was all I needed to see. I went to my filing cabinet and pulled out a certified copy of the deed, Cascade Road, purchased in 1998, paid in full by 2013. My name, only mine. No co-owners, no trusts, no loopholes. I scanned it with my phone and attached it to the next message. "Start here." The porch felt different after I hit send. The birds still chirped, but the stillness had shifted. Less like waiting, more like holding breath before motion. My hand didn't shake as I sipped from the chipped blue mug. The same one Kendra once called embarrassingly old. The same one that had seen me through both mortgages and my husband's cancer. I hadn't told a soul about Clarissa yet. Not Gloria, not Pastor Rob, not even Ellen. I needed this part of the plan to live in silence, just for a little while. I looked around my yard, the cedar bench I stained myself, the clothesline, the tomato cages leaning like tired soldiers, and knew something else. If I didn't act now, I'd lose everything I'd built. Not to death, not to illness, but to the slow, calculated erasure being carried out by someone who once called me Mama, only when she needed help with the rent. The Truist Bank branch on Peachtree had that faint citrus cleaner scent it always did. Sharp, bright, and overcompensating. I walked in just after 9 on August 26th, floral blouse pressed, documents in hand, resolve coiled tight in my chest. The air conditioning blasted, cutting through the Georgia heat like judgment. Mr. Dennis greeted me at the glass door entrance. "Miss Brooks," he said, rising from his desk with a warmth that had nothing to do with the bank's chill. "Right this way." I'd known him since he was an assistant teller. Back when I used to deposit Kendra's tuition checks. Back when she called every Sunday. I need to close the joint card, I said as soon as we sat, and remove my daughter from all authorized access to my checking, savings, and investment accounts. Today. His brows lifted slightly, but he didn't ask why. We can certainly do that, he said, turning to his monitor. Do you have your ID? I handed it over along with the new folder I'd labeled Financial Security, August 2024. Inside were statements, account numbers, notes. I wasn't fumbling. I was precise. We'll also enable two-factor authentication, Mr. Dennis added. You'll get alerts for every login attempt. No one will be able to make transfers without your approval. Good, I replied. Change the PIN and flag anything over $50. As he worked, I watched the light change on the sidewalk outside. Morning sliding toward noon, fast and unbothered. My phone buzzed in my purse. I didn't need to check it. I already knew what it was. 20 minutes later, I was walking out with a printed summary in my bag. New account numbers, new protections, new peace. By the time I pulled into my driveway, Kendra was already home. She stood in the kitchen with her arms folded, a Target bag on the counter, and fury stretched tight across her face. My card got declined. I know, I said, placing my purse gently on the table. It no longer exists. Her mouth opened to speak, but I cut in. You don't have access to my money anymore. If you need something, you'll need to ask. Nicely. And not expect a yes. She stared like I'd grown horns. Mr. Dennis had said something before I left. Might want to notify the HOA too, ma'am, just in case she tries to make changes. I plan to do exactly that. By August 28th, the house was quiet but taut, like the silence after a slammed door. Kendra had barely spoken to me in 2 days. No request, no updates, not even the usual passive-aggressive clatter of dishes in the sink. She had retreated to her room, and I let her stay there. I had other things to do. I cleared the dining table, laid out folders in rows, bank statements, receipts, tax documents, scanned PDFs, years of quiet support, all dated and documented. It was time to gather it into one unshakable ledger. I started by creating a private Google Drive folder. Estate. Private. No cute name, no shared access, just me and the cloud. One by one, I scanned every medical summary, every purchase related to Kendra, every utility bill that spiked after her arrival. Each file labeled by date and category. No guesswork, no gray areas. The folder grew fast. Grocery receipts from Publix, oil changes I paid for on her car, even screenshots of her Venmo requests, always framed as short-term help. I uploaded my journal entries too. Not because they were legal proof, but because they were emotional proof. Anchors. And then I added the deed, clean and direct, pulled from the county registrar's site and certified just a week ago. Cynthia Mae Brooks, sole owner, 4056 Cascade Road, Southwest. I made a backup on an encrypted flash drive, tucked it into the lining of my suitcase. Another copy went straight to Latrice, my CPA. She'd know what to do if this got ugly, and by now I was sure it would. That evening, I walked into the office to find the filing cabinet drawer open. Not wide, just enough to be obvious. A folder I'd left on top was missing. I called out, "Kendra?" No answer. When she returned an hour later, carrying Thai takeout like nothing had happened, I didn't confront her. Not yet. But I watched the way she set the bag down, carefully, deliberately. Her eyes flicked toward the home office, then back to me. She was looking for something. Probably hadn't found it. And wouldn't, because I had already moved it all. By September 1st, the air in Atlanta had shifted. The humidity had eased, just barely, and with it came a feeling I hadn't felt in months. Alignment. Things were lining up. Not perfectly, but purposefully. I called Clarissa first. We arranged to meet at Zion Hill Baptist, where I knew the walls were thick and the annex office stayed quiet. Latrice arrived next, straight from her downtown office, heels in hand, rolling her eyes at Midtown parking. Pastor Rob joined last. He brought sweet tea in silence, the kind that waits patiently for the truth to sit down and speak. We gathered in the small annex room behind the sanctuary. No microphones, no interruptions, just a church table, 4 chairs, and the weight of what I was about to share. I laid out copies of everything: the voice memo transcript, the canceled appointment notice, the screenshots of Zillow searches, and a notarized revocation of the power of attorney Kendra had convinced me to sign 2 years ago, something I'd forgotten until Latrice dug it out of her records. Clarissa flipped through each page with the scrutiny of someone trained to follow numbers to motive. "She's been laying groundwork," she murmured. "Carefully. Subtle psychological cues. Building a record of perceived instability." "She called Dr. Nolan's office behind my back," I added, tapping the appointment transcript. "Scheduled a memory test. Told the staff I'd agreed to it." Latrice leaned in. "You sure she didn't already file something?" I nodded slowly. "I checked the court docket 2 days ago. Nothing at that time." Clarissa pulled out her phone, thumbs working fast. "I'll double-check with probate. She might have filed late or under emergency motion." Pastor Rob finally spoke. "Miss Cynthia, if this comes to a public hearing, what do you want from us?" "Truth," I said. "And presence. I don't need people to defend me. I need people to witness." That same evening, Clarissa texted. She filed. "Petition for temporary guardianship. It's real now." They cited memory loss and increased confusion. I stared at the screen. 3 missed text messages. That's what they cited. I felt no panic, only steel settling into place. Kendra had crossed the threshold. She hadn't just threatened my autonomy. She'd submitted it to the court. But I wasn't walking in alone. I had receipts. I had names. And finally, I had a circle. By the morning of September 4th, I had a checklist scrawled across 3 pages of my notebook. Every item circled in red: file counter motion, notarize revocation, compile supporting evidence, prepare witness affidavits. It wasn't panic fueling me. It was protocol. This wasn't my first audit, just the first one where the client was my own daughter. At 9:47 a.m., I stepped into the Fulton County Clerk's office with a manila envelope labeled "Motion to Contest, Brooks, CM." Inside was every thread of the story Kendra had tried to spin into a web, only I had the ends tied down. The woman behind the desk raised an eyebrow as I slid the envelope across the counter. "Temporary guardianship contestation," I said. "Filed with supporting evidence and revocation documents." She looked from the envelope to my face. "Do you have counsel?" "Yes," I said, and stepped aside to let attorney Jamal Reese move into view. Young, sharp, and crisp as a pressed suit. I'd interviewed 3 before choosing him. He was the only one who didn't condescend. He gave the clerk a half smile. "We'll keep it clean but firm." The court date was set for September 9th. 5 days. Jamal and I spent the next 48 hours compiling a certified timeline. The change in household bills after Kendra moved in, the voice memo from the hallway, the doctor's canceled appointment, the scanned deed, the locked folder of financials. Everything labeled. Everything corroborated. We also submitted a notarized revocation of the durable power of attorney Kendra had tucked away, like a loaded weapon. It had been signed when I was recovering from a brief hospitalization, flu and dehydration, not dementia, but she had framed it in the court filing as progressive mental decline. Now it was null. Power of attorney is revoked as of September 4th. The notary's signature read, inked cleanly beside mine, "All authority terminated." That night, as the street lights flickered on across Cascade Road, I printed an extra copy of every page and filed them in the new binder I kept under my bed. Labeled Spine. Chronological tabs. Not for the court, for me. So I could remember that every boundary I'd drawn was documented, dated, and deserved. She had made the first move in secret. I answered in full view, under seal, with backup. The hearing began on September 9th, just after lunch. Courtroom 3A was packed, more than I expected. Kendra had brought people. 2 coworkers, a sorority sister, even an old neighbor I hadn't spoken to in years. She wasn't just trying to win, she was trying to control the narrative. Paint me as confused, unstable, tragic, easy to pity, easier to dismiss. She sat in a crisp white blouse, hair pinned perfectly, demeanor soft but poised. Her lawyer, Mr. Hawthorne, stood with polished ease, hands folded like he was presenting a misunderstood artist, not a daughter orchestrating a quiet coup. "Your Honor," he began, "our concern is simple. Ms. Brooks has displayed erratic behavior, missed appointments, and emotional outbursts, My client acted only out of concern. He gestured toward me as if I were a fragile exhibit. She thinks everyone's out to get her, that her daughter, her friends, even her doctor, are conspiring against her. I didn't flinch. Jamal rose, slow and deliberate. Your Honor, Ms. Brooks is here with documentation, witness support, and clear financial records. She is not delusional. She is detail-oriented. He passed a printed email to the clerk, who delivered it to Judge Carlton. This email, Jamal said, was sent from Ms. Kendra Brooks to a realtor, dated August 15th. It reads, Mom's easier to control this way. Once we move forward, listed as pre-approved. Kendra's face stiffened. The judge read silently, brow tightening as the room stilled. She had a drafted listing agreement, Jamal continued. Signed, but not yet dated. She was preparing to sell a home she did not own. We have the document. From the row behind me, Gloria shifted forward slightly, as if ready to stand. Miss Gertie, seated beside her, clutched her handbag like it held more than peppermints. The judge raised one hand, silencing the whisper that had begun rippling through the gallery. Recess, he announced, tapping his gavel. This court will reconvene at 10 a.m. tomorrow. I will review all submitted materials overnight. Kendra looked at me then, not in triumph, not in remorse, just tight calculation. As we stood, her shoulder brushed mine. Under her breath, she hissed, You don't know what you're doing. I didn't respond, but I did know what I was doing. I was walking in, eyes open, with every receipt tucked neatly into the binder on the bench beside me. The next morning, courtroom 3A felt different. Not quieter, not louder, just heavier, like something final was about to land, the kind of weight that precedes truth. Kendra walked in late, adjusting her sleeve with theatrical annoyance. She didn't glance my way, but I caught her mutter to her lawyer. Here we go. I stood before the judge, binder in hand. I had asked permission the moment we reconvened. Your Honor, I said, I'd like to address the court directly. Carlton gave a single nod. I stepped to the center, binder held against my chest like scripture. Not a dramatic gesture, just rooted. I am not here to defend myself from rumors. I am here to present facts. I opened the binder. First tab, financials. These are bank statements from the past 12 months, showing consistent management, no overdrafts, no irregularities. Page 3 includes documentation of all household expenses paid by me, with increases tracked after my daughter moved in. I flipped the tab. Second section, voice transcripts. August 3rd, hallway outside the guest room. My daughter was recorded saying, The house will be ours by fall. That file has been authenticated. I turned the page slowly. Next tab, healthcare. Confirmation from Dr. Nolan's office that I did not authorize the cancellation of my physical, nor the mental evaluations scheduled in its place. Behind me, someone in the gallery stirred, likely Miss Gertie. She had told me she'd bring lemon cough drops and Fury if needed. I kept going. Affidavits from Latrice Holder, CPA, and Clarissa Payne, OIG, attesting to my mental clarity, financial independence, and timeline of events. And then, I pulled the last page free, an official letter on clinic letterhead, signed confirmation from Dr. Nolan, no cognitive concerns. Ms. Brooks remains mentally fit and fully independent. I handed the document to the bailiff. He passed it to Judge Carlton without a word. I exhaled, slow and deliberate. Behind me sat the women who had shown up not to save me, but to bear witness. Gloria, lips pursed in restrained fire. Miss Gertie, nodding like every sentence had been hers, too. And Pastor Rob, hands folded, eyes steady. I wasn't raising my voice. I was setting the record straight. And for the first time since this began, I saw it. Kendra's confidence faltering, her face turning pale, her fingers twitching at the hem of her sleeve. The court wasn't turning on her. The truth was, the room was hushed, but not empty. It held breath. It held tension, and it held judgment, heavy and ready. Judge Carlton adjusted his glasses and began flipping through the binder slowly, page by page. Every now and then, he'd pause to underline something or nod to the clerk, who was already logging the exhibits into the permanent record. Kendra sat stiff beside her lawyer, who no longer looked composed. His jaw flexed as he leaned in to whisper, but Kendra didn't respond. Her gaze was fixed ahead, but her body had shrunk into itself. Carlton's voice broke the silence. Let the record reflect. he began, tone even, that the petitioner, Ms. Kendra Brooks, submitted a motion for temporary guardianship, citing cognitive decline and memory issues. He looked up. However, evidence submitted by the respondent includes a verified statement from a licensed physician affirming no such cognitive concerns. In addition, the court has reviewed extensive financial documentation demonstrating the respondent's continued ability to manage her own affairs. He turned another page. Furthermore, this court acknowledges a pre-drafted listing agreement with a local real estate agent, signed by the petitioner, suggesting intent to sell the respondent's home without legal authority to do so. A low murmur moved through the gallery. The judge raised one hand. "We are not here to debate family grievances. We are here to establish whether this petition was filed in good faith, based on verifiable concern." He tapped the binder. "The evidence suggests otherwise." I didn't move, didn't blink, just let the words fill the space Kendra had tried so hard to rewrite. Carlton continued, "In addition to denying this petition, the court will seal the filing to protect the respondent's reputation from further harm. All documents related to the claim of incapacity will be marked as baseless." Kendra turned then, looked at me, not with shame, not even remorse, just disbelief, like she hadn't expected the story to slip from her fingers. But it had. "Petition denied with prejudice," Carlton said, closing the folder. A final gavel tap. It echoed. Behind me, Gloria reached out and gently squeezed my hand. Miss Gertie whispered, let that be the last word." Pastor Rob nodded, quiet pride softening the corners of his mouth. I rose, binder still in hand, walked slowly, deliberately toward the courtroom exit. This wasn't triumph. It was justice, sharp-edged, documented, and sealed in the record. That evening, the locksmith arrived just before sunset. The porch glowed amber beneath the porch light I'd forgotten to replace last winter. Carlos from the HOA stood nearby, clipboard in hand, confirming everything in writing. "Full rekey," the locksmith muttered, unscrewing the old brass hardware. 3 exterior doors, 2 deadbolts. "This the only copy you want?" "Yes," I said, holding out my palm. "Only one," Carlos nodded approvingly. "And Kendra's officially banned from the property under HOA authority. We've updated the registry. If she shows up again, security will escort her off the grounds." The click of the new locks falling into place felt louder than any gavel. Final. Clean. Inside, the air was still. The silence had changed tone. It wasn't strained or watchful anymore. It was mine. I sat on the edge of the couch, still in my courtroom dress, the binder now resting on the coffee table beside the locksmith's invoice. Rocky service, September 11th, 6:48 p.m. Outside, a car screeched to a halt. Kendra. She stormed up the walkway, fury crackling off her like static. Her voice rose before she hit the steps. "You think this is over? You'll regret this." But the door was already shut. The deadbolt turned, smooth and unbothered. From behind the glass, I watched her pound her fist once, just once, before she saw Carlos standing beside the security guard I'd called in advance. They didn't touch her. Didn't need to. The look in their eyes told her exactly where the line now stood. She backed away, muttering something I didn't bother decoding. When her car pulled off, taillights vanishing down Cascade, I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding since July. Later that night, I opened my laptop. A revised copy of my will sat on the screen, unsigned. I clicked print. Kendra's name had been removed. In its place, Zion Hill Baptist Church, the Atlanta Literacy Initiative, and a scholarship fund for single mothers returning to school after 40. I signed with a pen that had my initials etched into the barrel, the same one I'd used to write checks for her ballet lessons, for her first car. She had made a play for everything I'd built, but I still had my name, my home, my records, and a key that clicked cleanly into a lock that now answered only to me.